So we're going to walk through the process of building out another OBS Custom Browser Dock solution to control a PTZ camera. Again, we're going to be using Bitfocus Companion, and we'll build out the solution for that. And so let's get into it. So I'm on the screen with one of my client sites, remoted into their instance. And so I'm going to open up File Explorer, and I've already downloaded the Bitfocus Companion software. So we're going to go ahead and install that. So it's finished with the installation. We're going to go ahead and click finish, and we have it checked so that it will go ahead and run Companion. The splash screen for Companion has come up. So we're going to go into the drop down for the GUI interface, and then we're going to select Ethernet because this computer is wired. So it picks up the IP address for this computer. And I'm going to say launch GUI, and that's going to open an internet browser window and show the GUI setup for Bitfocus Companion. Let me go ahead and maximize this, and this of course is our first time logging into it for this particular church. Okay, so right now we don't have any connections, and we know that we're going to be connecting it to OBS, and we're going to be connecting it to the PTZ camera. Okay, so a few things that we need to know right off the bat is the IP address for the camera. So I'm gonna come out here to Advanced IP Scanner. So it's going through and getting the IP addresses for all of the devices. So I'm gonna change the option there so it just shows the ones that are connected. And I see that this one down here is this Minray Industry is the PTZ camera. So let me open up a notepad so I can keep some notes here. So I'm gonna record that the camera IP 192.168.1.21. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and get the PC's IP because I'm gonna need that in a minute. Actually could have gotten it from the other program, and the IP address is .20. So one thing I want to do, OBS, I'm going to go ahead and set it up so that Companion will be able to connect to it. So I want to come down to WebSocket server settings, click on that, and I want to say enable WebSocket server. And then I'm going to uncheck what it says enable authentication. I'm going to say apply, click on allow. That's going to make it possible for Companion to talk back to OBS. So first thing I'm going to do here under connections, I want to search for OBS Studio. I'm going to say add the IP address 192.168.1.27. Okay, so we got a green check, so that tells me that we are connected to OBS. The other thing that we want to add is the IP of the PTZ camera, and that is .21. So to be able to get that connection, I am going to click on connections again, and then I'm going to type in PTZ, and I'm going to use the PTZOptics Visca, and I'm going to say add. Okay, and then I'm going to put in the IP address of it, 192.168.1.21. So that tells me we have a connection there. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and start setting up some of our buttons to control the camera. Okay, so I'm going to come over to buttons, and it already has a grid out here. I'm going to keep it with the dimensions that it has, and we're going to start populating the buttons. First, I'm going to populate the buttons for the camera. So I'm going to go to presets, and then I'm going to say Visca, and then I'm going to go to pan and tilt. Okay, so I'm going to start with my down key. I'm going to drag that in there, and then I'm going to get the up key, put that there. Then I'm going to get the left and the right. Now we have our panning and our tilting in. So I also want to come in and go under lens, and I want one for zoom in and I want one for zoom out. And generally speaking, with the setup for these cameras, I can easily pull in the presets from the camera. So I want to come down to recall preset, and then I'm gonna select the first 9 presets. So recall 1, put that here, recall 2, and preset 9. Okay, so we have all our presets in there. One thing that I would want to do here is customize these presets descriptions so that they show the actual preset that we have set for each camera. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to start up the PTZOptics software. So once that software is open, I should have a listing for each of the presets, and some of the ones that they have we may not do anything with, but we can fill it in later. So to see what is being shown, we're going to jump back over here to OBS so we can see the camera, and then we'll double check what we have. Okay, so the first preset says choir. That zooms out to a choir shot. The next one is pulpit. It comes in tighter on the pulpit. And then we have one that is side podium. That gets the podium there. We have another shot for musicians. It is just a little bit up to show the organ player and drummer. One for offering that shows the table out front. And let's see if we have anything on these rest of them. Okay, so I might take this one and make this a tighter pulpit shot, because that looks really reminiscent of what is on the choir. So I'm going to take this pulpit and then I'm going to zoom it in a little bit more, and I'm just going to call this pulpit tight. Okay, so we're going to end up using, in this case, the first 6, because I don't think the rest of them are identified, and if there's other shots that they want to get, we can add that in at a later period of time. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here to my Bitfocus Companion. I'm going to bring this up so I have a reference. So the first one is going to be choir. So I'm going to click on that preset, and we're going to call that choir. And I like to come in here, if I can, I want to increase the size of the font. I'll bring it up to an 18, make it a little bit bigger. Another thing that I usually do is where it has this information at the top of the button, I want to remove that. So to do that, I'm going to come down in settings and then buttons. And then there's an option here to show the top bar on each button, and I'm going to turn that off. So now when I come back over to buttons, it's not there. So let's see what else we got. We have pulpit for preset 2. Okay, so again, we're going to change our font size up to an 18. Okay, and then the next one is going to be the side podium. Okay, again, font size. Okay, the next one is musicians. This one, with the size of the word, we're not going to be able to change it up to an 18, so we'll leave it as it is. Next one's offering. And then the last one that we're going to use is the pulpit tight. And again, we're going to change this up to an 18. We said that for this particular church, we're not going to do anything with these other ones. If I want to go ahead and remove them, since we're not going to use it, there is an option to delete. I can click on delete, and it's going to ask me which button I want to delete. I select that one, then I click clear, and it removes it. We can repeat that on this one. Clear. Okay, so one thing that I think I want to do here, since I have 2 pulpit shots, I might want to move this one up to this line. So one way I can do it, there is an option here to swap. So I can click on swap, and then it wants you to click on the two buttons that you want to swap. So I'm going to click on side podium and pulpit type, and it swapped the two. So now we have our two podium shots together. Well, they'll work out well for us. Okay. So let's see if there's anything else in OBS that we need to bring in. OBS for this church is pretty simple. It's just one particular camera shot that we're bringing in, and then we just want to be able to have some automation on what we're doing with the camera movements. Okay, so we really don't need to bring much in here, so we can go ahead and jump to the step where we set up the actual surface and bring it into OBS. Okay, so we're going to go back over to Companion. We're going to go to Surfaces, and then we're going to say Add Emulator. And then we're just going to call this Cameras. And then it defaults to 4 rows by 8 columns. I'm going to reduce it to 6 columns. Now I want to come down to Interactive Buttons, Emulator. Got one called Cameras, and see what it looks like. We have it here, but it's not showing everything because I chopped off some of the buttons. Let's see if we can make some adjustments here. So I'm going to close up the simulator. I'm going to change the horizontal offset. Let's see what happens if I go to 2. And I'm going to make the vertical offset 1 to bring it up to the top of the screen. Okay, and let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty good, but I see I have an extra row down here that I don't need for this one particular setup. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to make the row count 3. Okay, so we got a row count of 3. Column count is 6. Okay, so let's check this one more time. So that's it. That does it for us. So I'm going to copy the URL of that emulator. I want to put that in my notepad. Then I'm going to come back over to OBS. And we're going to go into where it says Docks. And then we're going to do Custom Browser Docks. And the dock name is going to be Cameras. Then we're going to paste in the URL and then say Apply. And it goes out and gets that browser dock and brings it in. So what I'm going to do is go back in here, open up the dock for Cameras. That brings it up. And then I'm going to drag it down so we can dock it with everything else. So I'm going to dock it over the audio mixer. So what that does is make it so that you still have both of them here, but they are tabbed. I can go to audio mixer or I can go to Cameras. And then I'm going to do the same thing with scene transitions. So what this does is gets us so we have everything that controls the camera right here in OBS, where before we had OBS open and then we had the PTZOptics application open as well. I can go ahead and maximize this so I can see it a little bit better. I can click on camera and I have the controls right here. Okay, so from this point, if I click on choir, it goes to the choir shot. If I click on pulpit, it goes to the pulpit shot. Pulpit type, it zooms in some more. We still have our zoom in, zoom out functionality. I can go to the musician shot, the offering, the side podium, and of course my pan and tilt operates as we should. One thing that I'm going to do here, and it's going to show how immediate some of the changes are. Right here, this button here is blue. I'm going to go ahead and change it back over here in Bitfocus Companion. Scroll up to the Buttons tab, and I'm going to go to this button right here, and you have the option to change the background. So I'm just going to click on that blue background, and let's do this. Instead of changing that blue background, let's go ahead and change the other one so they're blue. You have a little contrast there. So I'm going to click on this one, and then I'm going to change it to blue. Click on this one, change the background, change it to blue as well. And then we're going to take the down and change it to blue. So that gives us everything that we need to be able to control the PTZ cameras. If we were to jump back over here to OBS, we see that all those changes have taken place, and we have the background covers that we specified. And so I may go in and add a couple of other preset shots, but this does everything that we need for adding the control dock to OBS. Now, one other thing that I may look at is setting up for the Stream Deck, set up the virtual Stream Deck. So what I'm doing here is I set up a virtual Stream Deck, and I'm copying over the buttons that I have on the physical Stream Deck so that they can work on the virtual Stream Deck as well. So I've copied the choir button. I'm gonna copy pulpit from the Stream Deck. I'm gonna select the virtual Stream Deck and paste it in, and I'm gonna repeat the process. Okay, one thing I like to do on the setup, see how it has these blank spaces where I don't have buttons in there. I go into the settings for the virtual Stream Deck, and I turn off the option that says hide unused buttons, so everything is uniform in how it's set up. Okay, so now I have this virtual Stream Deck that I can move anywhere that I want on the screen. So for example, if I was to minimize this browser window, and I can even close up the Stream Deck control, go back to OBS, and just like I had these buttons here to control the movements, now I can control it with the virtual Stream Deck. And again, this can be put anywhere that I want on the screen. So for this client, they are actually streaming through EvMux. So I can actually come over here. So we have everything here in OBS. We can make our changes as we need to. Again, we can drag our virtual Stream Deck wherever we want on the screen. And as I was saying, with this site, they actually use EvMux for their streaming. So I'm going to jump over into EvMux. We're going to sign in. We go into the studio. So when I get to this point, I always want to check what camera I have in, because sometimes it will include the NDI camera rather than, in this case, the OBS virtual camera, and that's what I want to see. So I have that there. So I can close out of this and enter the studio. And so I'll probably come back in and add some EvMux functionality. But right now this is just the camera control. So if I was to come over to this praise and worship screen, which is showing the camera, if I was to make any changes here, we'll see them automatically on the camera here, because it's going to OBS and then routing over to EvMux. So pulpit, there we go. Again, my settings here to pan, tilt, and zoom, they work as we expected, along with any of the presets. As I click on them, it moves to that location. So what I probably would end up doing is maybe expanding this and adding some other features into it. One thing about the virtual Stream Deck, you do have the option to control the size of the panel. So if I went back into Stream Deck software and go here for settings, there is an option for key size. And as I drag the key size to the right, the panel actually gets bigger. So you can really kind of change it so that it fits the area that you need it to work in. So one thing that I like about using it over here in EvMux is that I can go to the maximize setting, go into full screen mode, and then I have this blank area down here that I can move my dock down to. And that's where I'm working from. So again, anything that I want to change, I just change it here, and it actually changes it on the screen. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can pan, I can do whatever needs to be done. So that's a really good piece of functionality. So it keeps them from having to jump back between multiple programs to get the job done. And then if I want to come out of full screen mode, all I have to do is press escape and it goes back to the regular mode.